As the county sheriff, my perspective on our neighborhood is multifaceted. It's not just my home, it's my jurisdiction, a place I'm sworn to protect. From a professional perspective, the initial tranquility of our streets represents a successful fulfillment of my duty. The low crime rate, the absence of major incidents, the general sense of order, these are indicators of a well-maintained community. I see the children riding bikes, the elderly couples strolling, and I feel a sense of accomplishment. This isn't just a pleasant neighborhood, it's a safe one, and that's partly my responsibility. I take pride in knowing the residents feel secure. However, I'm also a resident, a neighbor. From a personal perspective, I value the same things as everyone else: the peace, the quiet, the sense of community. I chose to live here for the same reasons they did. I wave to my neighbors while mowing the lawn. I chat with them at the corner store. I participate in the neighborhood watch. I'm invested in maintaining this quality of life, not just as a sheriff, but as someone who calls this place home. This dual role creates a unique blend of professional obligation and personal investment. From a legal perspective, I'm constantly aware of the laws that govern our community, even when off duty. I notice the speed limit signs, the crosswalks, the stop signs, not just as visual cues, but as representations of the order I'm tasked with upholding. I see the potential for violations, the vulnerabilities in our seemingly perfect system. This awareness is always present, a subtle undercurrent to my daily life. When Karen arrives, my perspective shifts. Initially, from a neighborly perspective, I see her as a potential disruption, someone who might not understand our unwritten rules. Her ostentatious house and flashy car stand out, raising a subtle flag. It's not a judgment, just an observation. A new element has been introduced into a carefully balanced equation. I hope she'll integrate, that she'll appreciate the values we hold dear, but I'm also wary. From a psychological perspective, I'm trained to observe behavior, to look for patterns, to anticipate potential problems. Karen's initial actions, the way she carries herself, the way she interacts or doesn't interact with her neighbors, raise concerns. There's a certain disregard, a lack of awareness that hints at a potential for conflict. I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I'm filing away these observations, building a mental profile. From a conflict perspective, I recognize that Karen's presence introduces a potential for disruption. The contrast between her lifestyle and the established norms of the neighborhood is stark. It's not just about the car, it's about a fundamental difference in values. This isn't necessarily a problem yet, but it's a potential fault line, a point of friction that could escalate. I see the possibility of future clashes, not just between Karen and her neighbors, but between Karen and the law. As the sheriff, I'm in a unique position. I have to balance my personal desire for peace with my professional obligation to maintain order. I have to be both a neighbor and a law enforcement officer. And as Karen's behavior begins to unfold, I know that this delicate balance will be increasingly tested. My initial observations are not just casual, they are the foundation for the decisions I will have to make in the coming weeks and months. I am, in essence, watching the cracks appear in the facade of our peaceful neighborhood, and I know it's my duty to prevent those cracks from widening. The subtle unease I felt upon Karen's arrival, that initial observation of a potential disruption, quickly solidified into a tangible problem. It started subtly, a few complaints here and there at the neighborhood association meetings, whispers about a red blur speeding down Elm Street. But the whispers soon turned into concerned voices, and the isolated incidents became a pattern. My dual role, as both neighbor and sheriff, became increasingly strained. The cracks I'd observed in the facade of our peaceful neighborhood were widening. From a legal perspective, each reported incident, a near miss with a child on a bike, a blatant disregard for a stop sign, a complaint about excessive speed, was a potential violation. I started keeping a mental log, a growing list of infractions that individually might seem minor, but collectively painted a picture of reckless endangerment. I knew I couldn't officially intervene off duty, but the sheriff in me was itching to act. From a community perspective, the tension was palpable. Parents were becoming increasingly anxious, restricting their children's outdoor playtime. The friendly waves exchanged between neighbors were now tinged with worry. The sense of security that had defined our neighborhood was eroding, replaced by a constant undercurrent of fear. I heard it in their voices, saw it in their eyes. "Sheriff," Mrs. Henderson, a sweet elderly woman who lived across the street from me, said one morning, her voice trembling slightly, "I saw that red car again. It nearly hit little Timmy Johnson as he was crossing the street to get to the school bus. She didn't even slow down." "I'll look into it, Mrs. Henderson," I reassured her, trying to project calm authority, even though my own frustration was building. This wasn't just a legal issue anymore. It was a personal one. These were my neighbors, my friends, and their safety was being threatened. From a personal perspective, I felt torn. I tried the neighborly approach first. One evening, I caught Karen as she was getting out of her Ferrari. "Hey, Karen," I said casually, trying to keep my tone neutral. "We've had a few reports of speeding in the neighborhood. Just wanted to remind you to be mindful of the speed limit. Lots of kids around." She looked at me, her expression a mixture of annoyance and disdain. "I know how to drive," she retorted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's not a highway, relax. Besides, I'm always in a hurry." "Being in a hurry doesn't justify endangering others, Karen," I said, my voice hardening slightly. "This is a residential area. People live here, children play here." She rolled her eyes. "Everyone's making such a big deal out of nothing. I'm a good driver." She then slammed her car door and walked away, leaving me standing there fuming. The neighborly approach had failed, miserably. From a psychological perspective, I started to analyze Karen's behavior more critically. Her defensiveness, her refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing, her constant excuse of being in a hurry, it all pointed to a deep-seated sense of entitlement and a complete lack of empathy. She wasn't just a bad driver, she was a danger. The situation escalated. More complaints poured in. Near misses became more frequent. The neighborhood association sent her official warnings, which she ignored. Some residents resorted to shouting at her as she sped past, a desperate attempt to get through to her. One afternoon, I was washing my car in my driveway when I witnessed it myself. Karen's Ferrari roared down the street, ignoring a stop sign completely. A young boy on a bicycle, luckily, saw her at the last minute and swerved, narrowly avoiding a collision. The boy's mother, who had been watching from across the street, screamed. I threw down my sponge, my patience finally snapping. "That's it," I muttered to myself. This wasn't just a neighborly dispute anymore. This was a clear and present danger. From a professional perspective, I knew I had to act. The line between neighbor and sheriff had blurred, and my duty was clear. I couldn't wait for a tragedy to happen. The next morning, I put on my uniform, got into my patrol car, and waited. The transition from concerned neighbor to law enforcement officer was complete. The time for gentle warnings was over. It was time to uphold the law and protect my community, even if it meant confronting one of its own. The seed of doubt planted in the introduction had now fully bloomed into a full-scale crisis. The careful balance I'd strived to maintain was shattered, and I was now squarely in the role of enforcer, a role I had hoped to avoid, but one that Karen's actions had made unavoidable. The following confrontation would be the inevitable result of weeks of escalating tension and a complete breakdown of communication and respect. The confrontation, as I described earlier, was the turning point. My actions, the flashing lights, the siren, the firm but professional demeanor, were calculated to convey the seriousness of the situation. But it was the aftermath, the internal and external consequences Karen faced, that truly shaped the resolution. After I issued the citation, and Karen had her unfortunate incident with the locked car, I returned to my patrol car, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and unease. Justice had been served, legally speaking. The citation listed 3 violations: speeding, 25 miles per hour over the limit, failure to stop at a stop sign, and, most seriously, failure to stop for a school bus. The total fine was $750, a significant sum, especially considering the potential for increased insurance premiums. But money wasn't the real issue, was it? It was about Karen's internal state. I could only imagine the turmoil she was experiencing. The shock of being pulled over, the humiliation in front of her neighbors, the fear of further legal trouble, and then the sheer absurdity of locking herself out of her own car. It was a perfect storm of consequences. A few days later, I saw her at the local grocery store. I braced myself for another confrontation, but it never came. She saw me, and for a moment our eyes met. There was no defiance in her gaze, no anger. Instead, I saw something that looked a lot like shame. I approached her cautiously. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice neutral. She flinched slightly, then looked down at her shopping cart. "Sheriff," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. "How are you doing?" I asked, genuinely curious. She shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "Fine. I paid the ticket." "I know," I said. "Look, I'm not here to lecture you. I wanted to see how you were." She finally looked up at me, and for the first time I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "It was a lot," she admitted, her voice still quiet. "The fine, the everything." "It was meant to be a wake-up call, Karen," I said gently. "Not a punishment, but a reminder of the responsibilities we all have to each other." She nodded slowly. I guess I didn't realize how much my driving, how it affected people. It's not just about following the rules," I explained. "It's about safety, about respecting the community you live in." A long silence followed. Then Karen said, her voice barely a whisper, I was being selfish. I know that now." That admission, however small, was significant. It wasn't a dramatic apology, not a grand gesture of remorse, but it was a start. It was a crack in the wall of entitlement she'd built around herself. "So," she started with a sigh, "about the school bus, I really did not see the kid. I mean, that doesn't change anything, but it's true." "I believe you didn't see him," I said plainly. "But Karen, that is exactly the issue, isn't it? You should have. You must. Driving requires complete attention." From that point on, the overcorrection in her driving became a source of neighborhood amusement, but it was also a constant reminder of the change she'd undergone. The $750 fine, the public humiliation, the quiet conversation in the grocery store. These were all elements of a resolution that was far more complex than a simple legal transaction. It was about the internal shift, the slow, often awkward process of recognizing one's flaws and attempting to make amends. The resolution wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was a testament to the power of consequences, the potential for change, and the enduring importance of community responsibility. The dialogue, though brief, revealed a crucial step in Karen's journey. the beginning of acknowledging her wrongdoing and the impact it had on others. This internal reckoning, more than the fine itself, was the true price of her change. The quiet conversation in the grocery store, Karen's subdued admission of fault, and her subsequent almost comical overcorrection in driving habits marked the final stage of the resolution, as discussed previously. But the true conclusion of the story lies not in the specifics of Karen's behavior, but in the broader lessons it imparts about community, responsibility, and the potential for human change. The narrative transcends the immediate conflict, offering insights applicable to a wide range of social interactions. The story, at its core, is a microcosm of how societies function. Rules, both formal, laws, and informal, social norms, exist to maintain order and protect the well-being of the collective. Karen's initial disregard for these rules represented a challenge to that order, a threat to the shared sense of security. Her actions, while seemingly minor in isolation, had a ripple effect, creating fear and eroding trust. The $750 fine was merely a symbolic representation of the larger societal cost of her behavior. The community's response, the initial warnings, the escalating frustration, and finally, the intervention of law enforcement, highlights the importance of collective action. Individuals, feeling powerless on their own, found strength in numbers. The neighborhood association, the concerned parents, the whispering neighbors, they all played a role in holding Karen accountable. This underscores a crucial lesson. A healthy community requires active participation and a willingness to speak up against wrongdoing. Silence, in the face of injustice, can be as damaging as the injustice itself. Karen's eventual transformation, however imperfect, demonstrates the potential for human change, even in seemingly entrenched patterns of behavior. While her motivation might have been a complex mix of shame, fear, and a genuine desire for redemption, the outcome was positive. This offers a message of hope, a reminder that people are not static entities. They can learn, they can adapt, and they can choose to do better. The story doesn't present a fairy tale ending of perfect reconciliation, but it offers something more realistic, the possibility of growth, even after significant mistakes. The concluding message is not simply obey the law. It's a more nuanced call for empathy, responsibility, and a recognition of our interconnectedness. Karen's journey is a cautionary tale, but also a testament to the resilience of community and the enduring human capacity for change. It reminds us that our actions have consequences, that our choices impact those around us, and that true belonging requires a commitment to the well-being of the whole. The seemingly isolated incident of reckless driving ultimately served as a catalyst for a deeper understanding of these fundamental principles, leaving a lasting impact not just on Karen, but on the entire neighborhood. It is a lesson that extends far beyond the confines of a quiet suburban street, resonating with anyone who has ever navigated the complexities of living in a shared social space. The resolution is a circle completed, returning the neighborhood to peace, but a peace now enriched by experience.